If you want to build a business that is remembered and not just used, start here. Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. It's today's must-read episode, and I'm so excited. I found this book to be a compelling read, one of the best books I've read in 2025, and it's for good reason. Will Guidara is the co-founder of 11 Madison Park in New York, the #1 restaurant in the world. This isn't just a book about food. It's about how deliberately going above and beyond can make you unforgettable. Whether you're running a coaching business or digital product or a service-based business, these lessons are gold. Today, I'm going to take you through 5 standout lessons from 5 chapters from the book. All the chapters are amazing. All 20 of chapters are absolutely great. I'm also going to share with you real stories from these lessons, stories that come straight from the restaurant 11 Madison Park. And each one of these come with a takeaway that you can implement today. I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you for being here. You're a learner, you're a doer, you're my kind of person. And if you want to join people just like you in our growing community of entrepreneurs, hit subscribe right under this video. You grow, we all win. Thanks. I first want to say that this book is incredibly impactful because it's written like a biography, but throughout the stories are incredible lessons that are practical and really smart, like things you haven't heard of before. It's compelling as a book to read. I highly recommend it. The audiobook is fantastic as well. It's actually narrated by the author, Will Guidara, so you'll absolutely love it. Let me start with one of my favorite lessons and stories from chapter 4, Lessons in Enlightened Hospitality. In this chapter, Will invites every team member at the restaurant to notice and anticipate guests' needs, whatever those needs are, down to the tiniest detail. One story or one example is if a guest mentioned they drove and parked at a meter, a staff member would ask them, "Where did you park? What's your car look like?" And they would tell them and say, "Yeah, my car's just down the road. It's a white Saab." And they would quietly feed the meter so that the guest didn't worry. They would say, "Hey, listen, don't worry about the meter. We're going to take care of it so that you can relax and enjoy the meal." That small thing would cost, what, $1 or $2 at the time? But it built an incredible experience and goodwill with the customer. The takeaway here is if you solve minor stresses before they arise, you're going to win with your customer. And that only happens if you pay attention to the details. If you anticipate the needs of your customers, this builds incredible trust and it makes an incredible emotional impact. That story of feeding the meter is going to be told so many times over and over by that guest to their friends, to their family. This story is a good example of what is meant by unreasonable hospitality. Doing something that they're not expecting, the customer that is, and doing something that your competitors are not even thinking about. The next lesson comes from chapter 6, Pursuing a True Partnership. This chapter has a great story and a great example of how EMP, 11 Madison Park, created magical moments by personalizing experiences. A couple that was celebrating their anniversary at the restaurant mentioned that they forgot a bottle of champagne in the freezer, and they asked their server, "Will it explode before we get home?" The server said, "It certainly will," but asked them for their keys and their address and asked if it was okay if a staff member could go and rescue the situation. The couple was shocked and they said, "Yeah, sure, here's the keys." And now they can relax and enjoy their meal. But that's not the end of it. When the couple arrived home, they found the champagne in the fridge along with chocolates and even caviar with a handwritten card from EMP. It's a bundle of small surprises that make the guests feel honored and taken care of. There's so much in this book about we got your back. We're going to take care of you. You're family to us. And we're going to go and take that extra step to really wow you. The takeaway here is that personal touches matter more than the grand gifts. The fact that the couple mentioned it was their anniversary and they forgot the bottle of champagne in their freezer, that requires you to be listening and to be thinking on your feet, how can I help this couple have a better time at my restaurant so they're not worrying about the champagne? Let me solve this problem for them. You can transform a generic interaction into an emotional moment. The server continued to work, but handed over this task to somebody that wasn't busy in the back office. And it took a few moments, but it made a huge impact. Now, before we continue, I want to just address the voice in your head right now saying, Omar,
This is gonna cost a pretty penny if I'm gonna do these crazy grand gifts and surprises.
there's going to be more stories talking about how you can do this with very little money, if no money. But the point here is that you need to invest in your business, and the word of mouth marketing is going to pay dividends. And if you don't have the money, it's okay. It's about the personal touches and showing that you care. The other thing is that you could budget for this in your P&L. And that leads me to my next lesson that comes from chapter 10, signature moments and the 95-5 rule. The 95-5 rule, as explained by Will in the book, is that 95% of the P&L of the budget is tight, is clean, it's efficient, but they leave 5% to surprise and wow their customers. 5%, a budget of 5% of whatever money or profit they have to make sure that they go above and beyond to wow their customers. Just like you have a budget for marketing. In fact, this could be your budget for marketing because it is marketing. Let me share a story of what I'm talking about, how it doesn't really need to cost a lot for you to make a huge impact. Now, by now in the book, you're realizing that, wow, 11 Madison Park has this incredible culture of creative hospitality. And this is a prime example of doing it on a budget. One guest was joking with their server and saying, I'm trying to raise my last $1 million for my round to start my business. They're raising a round of funding. The server was saying, hey, is there anything else I could do for you? And they're like, oh, you can give me $1 million so I can complete my round. And they chuckled about it. But later on, the team went to the drugstore and came back before the end of the meal and served him 100 grand candy bars. There's a candy bar in the US called the 100 grand, and 100 grands make $1 million. Now, at the time, that would have cost maybe $10, $12. But at the end of the meal, when he saw these candy bars, he was shocked, the customer. He was joking about how he actually fulfilled his request of getting him $1 million, so to speak. It became a signature story, and nothing shows personality like lighthearted generosity and a little bit of, hey, I'm listening and I'm doing what I can to try to fulfill your request. The takeaway here is don't underestimate the power of humor and surprise. The right gesture, funny, sincere, unexpected, can create a massive word of mouth campaign for you without costing much. Forget about $10 or $15. What about $2? Okay, this next lesson will show you it's about the thoughtfulness that you provide to your customers and not the actual amount of money you spend. This lesson comes from chapter 18, improvisational hospitality. A group of tourists from Europe who were dining at EMP admitted that they had one regret after seeing everything in New York and going to all the different shows and going to different restaurants. The one thing they didn't try was a classic New York City hot dog. So instead of ignoring it, Will ran outside and bought what's called a dirty water hot dog in New York, where you just go to the hot dog stand, get that $2 hot dog from a streetcar, and then went back to his kitchen and asked the chef to plate it with mustard, relish, sauerkraut, and brought it to the table, cut it into 4 pieces. That spontaneous action became the signature story and defined unreasonable hospitality. It actually became a news piece because it was a $2 hot dog, but it was because they were listening to their customers, and now every wish they had in their trip to New York was fulfilled. That shows you that if you care, if you're listening and you take action to wow your customers in ways that show that not only are you generous, but you're creative with your generosity. The takeaway here is that sometimes the boldest, simplest gesture can create the biggest memories. Don't dismiss being playful or going off script a bit. It's your business. You can do what you want. Deliver that surprise beautifully when you can. The lessons keep coming, and I'm just scratching the surface, by the way. There's so many great lessons and stories in this book. I absolutely love it, okay? Chapter 19, I want to share with you one more. Scaling a culture and dream weavers. What's that all about? In this chapter, Will shares how he was able to scale this type of culture in his team at the restaurant and build a category of people or helpers on the team called dream weavers, people that are fulfilling dreams for their customers. Remember, this is a restaurant, but again, if they want to be more than a restaurant, if they want to be the best experience anybody's had, they have to create these experiences and go above and beyond. In winter, A family that was enjoying dinner at EMP was watching snowfall, and the staff noticed that and had a little conversation. They discovered that they're from Spain and never saw snow before. So, guess what? EMP went off and grabbed a couple of sleds. And after the dinner was over, they chauffeured the family to Central Park and let their kids play in the snow. Listen, it's not required to do this. And again, it wasn't cheap. They had to go to the toy store, get a couple of sleds. But guess what? They could use those sleds again if they wanted to. But it was human. It was showing that you are not a customer to me. You are somebody I care about. You're somebody that I want to create a memory for. You're a family member. Now, the takeaway here is that it wasn't Will, the co-owner of the restaurant, that came up with this idea. It was somebody from the team. Culture is more than values. It's action. It's having the freedom to fulfill those values. So you want to train your team to spot moments and make them extraordinary when they can really impress their customers, even if it doesn't scale perfectly. Friends, I got to tell you that this book was inspiring. It was really pushing me to think bigger about how I serve my own customers. Across all these stories, I saw a clear pattern. And those patterns are: be present, notice the small things, be creative, surprise in human ways, in human connection, right? Be generous with time, with heart, with thought, which means try harder, do better, okay? If you want to be the number one in anything, then you have to do things differently. You have to do things way better and way different than your competition. If your competition is not willing to do that, you got to be willing to do that, okay? And that's how you rise above. And a lot of times in this book, he shares that they were punching above their weight a lot of times. They were spending a bit more than they wanted to and performing like a much more expensive restaurant than they were. But those things, being present, being creative, being generous, that's unreasonable hospitality. And it sets brands apart. In your business, every touch point is an opportunity. A sign-up email, a support call, a deliverable, even a canceled meeting is a chance to exceed expectations. Most businesses meet expectations, not beat them. So if you're in real estate, for example, most real estate agents, as a gift for a new home after closing the deal with that house, they put a bottle of bubbles in the fridge and they say, congrats on the new house. But something that is less expensive and more thoughtful would be listening to your actual customer. Maybe they mentioned they loved yoga and they would love to do yoga in the sun in their new home. So having a rolled out yoga mat as a gift in the sunroom would be much more impactful and memorable and heartfelt than just a standard drink in the fridge. To stand out, you gotta be willing to feel unreasonable sometimes. That's today's must-read episode. I highly recommend Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. One of my favorite reads of the year. It was compelling. It was fun. It was hard to put down, honestly. It was just great storytelling and really practical, honestly. It was a business book that really allowed you to learn while you were just enjoying yourself. Now, if you want to continue down this journey of improving as an entrepreneur, then you're going to want to join our newsletter. Now, our newsletter is sent once a week and it's super actionable. Every week, I send you 3 things: something to think about so you're improving your mindset, something to do so you're taking action week after week, and then something to learn so you're skilling up. How do you join the newsletter? All you got to do is sign up for one of our freebies, one of our guides. For example, our escape plan. And all you got to do is go to 100mba.net/escape to sign up. You'll get the escape plan and you'll get added to the newsletter automatically. A win-win. Before I go, I want to leave you with this. Legendary service and leadership beats average every time. You want to serve beyond. You want to surprise often. You want to build a business people talk about and not just buy from. So keep that in mind in everything you do in your business. Be creative, push yourself, regardless of your budget. Until next time, go unreasonable.